Now, for those who actually question whether or not the towers did in fact turn to dust in mid-air, there's a clip which I don't think I've shown on Rich Planet before of, if you just describe this clip, Julie, I don't think I've seen this one.
If you look at this is the northwest corner of the North Tower. You see that vertical line near the center of the image, and you'll notice in a little bit there will be a whitish beam that you'll see dropping down. And it'll emerge, and as it emerges you see this opaque trail of dust behind it. And it becomes clearer and clearer, it's trailing dust, then pretty soon it runs out of dust to trail because it no longer exists. It becomes dust. And then when you look at it at full speed, you not only realize this beam is doing that, but everything in the image is doing that. And if you look down at the intersection right after where that stuff was falling, it's not there. It's just paper.
Now this process, which we're seeing in that image, you have linked it to something which is akin to or similar to cold fusion. And in a cold...
It has a lot of similarities with what was called cold fusion, low energy nuclear reaction.
A low energy nuclear reaction. And this was something which was covered up in the late 1980s, early 1990s.
1989.
Right, and so it's a technology which you think was taken over by the military, presumably.
Yeah, I never know when, officials have it. If it pops out in the public domain, maybe they may try to shut it down. I have a feeling that, top secret places, wherever, black technology, it's there already. But in 1989, this popped out. It's the work of Pons and Fleischmann. But the significant thing that was discovered then was this type of reaction. It was through electrolysis, an electrolytic process, and they found transmutation, different metals forming on the electrodes that, they don't know where it came from. It indicated there was a nuclear process going on, as well as the tritium that was measured. And tritium, up until that point, had only been found in like nuke bombs, where you get other types of ionizing radiation, the kind of thing where Geiger counters are going to go off, that you would find. And they were first saying that Pons and Fleischmann were bogus because of this only tritium and not the other. And John Bockris actually was the first to discover this tritium, and somebody wrote this nasty article, I think in Science magazine, saying he must have spiked his sample with tritium, because why else isn't this other stuff there? And Pons and Fleischmann would be dead if this really was. So there's a lot of data on that, and it's been sorted out.
We can put this graph on the screen, which is what was measured at the World Trade Center site after the events. Just explain the graph for us, Judy.
On the right-hand side, you'll see a logarithmic scale, and I've given samples of different things that have been measured. Over on the left-hand side, at the bottom, you'll see it starts at 1963 to about 1990, and it's showing the decrease in the tritium levels in the Great Lakes. And that tritium was there because of atmospheric nuclear bomb testing. And you can see it decreases, and it has a half-life of about 12.5 years. The next one over is current measurements in the Great Lakes. And then the yellow one in the middle is the actual measurements that were taken shortly after 9/11, where there's these very high levels of tritium that are not just random high normal. There's definitely a source of something that put tritium there.
So the appearance of this thing called tritium, which is
indicates, there's no doubt there was some sort of nuclear reaction going on.
Right.
It actually absolutely confirmed. Now, there also was no ionizing radiation recorded. Nobody with Geiger counters came around and found anything. And if you remember Chernobyl, I've got a diagram in the book and with a question asking, do you think they could have kept Chernobyl a secret? Because it shows the measurements all around the planet of the fallout from that. And there was no such measurements on 9/11.
Yeah, because this is one of the three alternative theories that people put forward, is that it was done by some kind of nuclear weapon.
Somebody around the planet would have been measuring it.
Right, so there would have been fallout measured around the site of 9/11, and there was no fallout radiation. but there was the presence of tritium.
Yes.
So the process of cold fusion is something which creates tritium in those sort of quantities. So you think it's something similar?
That, yeah, and the third one, I mean, the fourth value over is values that you measure in LENR, low energy nuclear reactions, or cold fusion. And at the far end of the scale is what comes from, the source is leaky nuclear plants, which is sky high. It's like 18,000 times what was measured at the World Trade Center. So the closest, if you look at the order of magnitude measured, was low energy nuclear reactions of all those choices of the sources. And if you have fire hoses on it and so forth, you're going to get it pretty watered down.